All right, Strive made a very big announcement on X this morning. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet. It said Strive will combine with asset entities to form the first publicly traded asset management Bitcoin Treasury company. So we're about to learn a little bit more about that because they pretty much went radio silent right after that post. So we're going to be introducing Matt Cole, the CEO and CIO of Strive Asset Management, which was co-founded by Vivek Ramaswamy. He leads the firm with a focus on establishing its Bitcoin treasury, both by accumulating Bitcoin and building a long-term investment approach designed to outperform it, using Bitcoin as the hurdle rate for capital deployment across the firm. A longtime Bitcoin advocate, Matt previously managed more than $70 billion in fixed income portfolios at CalPERS, consistently delivering benchmark-beating performance. He helped drive the shareholders' first movement against ESG and DEI mandates, and now the focus, of course, is maximizing Bitcoin exposure. Before we hear from Matt, a short video.
We want to be a part of taking Bitcoin to the masses in a really well thought out way. When we talk about Bitcoin, we view Bitcoin and investing in Bitcoin as an asset class, not just an asset.
If your company's sitting on a stockpile of cash, you're going to hold a lot of it. A lot of them do today in the form of U.S. Treasuries. Very few of them are holding those in the form of Bitcoin today. I believe that is likely to change.
Strive is all about capitalism, maximizing value for shareholders, period. Bitcoin is the most pro-capitalism, pro-freedom in the history of financial markets. So our view is that corporate America needs to adopt Bitcoin in a major way, and that's why we're here.
As a long-run investor in your company, in the future, if you've deployed capital and you've underperformed Bitcoin, then my view is that you should be fired.
Wow. Well, I don't want to be fired. I'll just start with that. But just to take a step back, my background is actually traditional finance, not Bitcoin, as the video laid out. I was a $70 billion portfolio manager at CalPERS. They're the largest pension in America. And so I was doing a couple different things there. One, I was one of the larger buyers of structured securities. And so Michael Saylor has given a masterclass over the last few days, from the earnings release to yesterday's presentation, on why these innovative fixed income approaches are so important for a Bitcoin treasury company, because it's not just about buying Bitcoin, diluting shareholders. You actually need to do it in a way that accretes value, and structured securities is so important for that. So anyways, that was part of my background. The other was I was one of the larger buyers of US Treasuries in the United States. And so for many years, I was sitting there staring at the debt crisis of the United States and buying the debt, because that was my job. Sitting there watching the Fed print money time and time again. And then we would meet with the Fed and I would say, "You're printing money." And they say, "No, it's not printing money." Like, no, it's printing money, which somehow they still think that it's not that monetary easing has not been printing money. And staring at the problem, and then it became very clear for me in about 2016 that Bitcoin was the answer to every single macro problem I was seeing as a fixed income investor, managing a pension that was underfunded, trying to meet its liabilities for those that served California at CalPERS. So I went all in on Bitcoin, and my last few years at CalPERS, I tried to help them look at it from an asset allocation perspective. When Strive was founded in 2022, they brought a refreshing mission around financial freedom. And the first part of that mission was really about pushing back against constraints in the capital markets. Those constraints were ESG constraints that we were initially focused on. And what we showed the world in just a couple short years is that corporate governance and activism and advocacy can drive major change in corporate America. And so just in a couple of years, the ESG movement is pretty much behind us. It's not popular anymore. And we're entering what I believe still to be the golden age in America of innovation. I think AI is going to drive that in a major way. A world of abundance. And in that world of abundance, there is going to be a massive, massive premium on what is scarce. And Bitcoin is the most scarce asset ever known to man, the most perfect form of money. And so our focus now in our advocacy efforts, our number one focus, we're still fighting back against ESG overreach when it's there, but our top focus is Bitcoin corporate adoption across corporate America. And it really is staggering how early that we are in this movement. Less than 1% of companies, public companies, have adopted a Bitcoin treasury. We just had a panel of innovators. We're the newest now Bitcoin treasury company, and we're going to accelerate in every single way that you could possibly imagine. Our board is designed to accelerate. We have a couple different independent board members that we've announced today. Jeff Walton, Ben Workman, kind of the hurdle rate pod crew, and then Ovik Roy. I mean, yeah, I see it right there. And that's key, because one of the first things I've noticed as we've advocated for large corporations to adopt a Bitcoin treasury is the stakeholder management. You can't have a board of directors that's going to slow you down. Innovation and acceleration is key to deploy a Bitcoin treasury strategy and deploy it in a way that's going to be accretive to shareholders, to common equity shareholders, because it's not just about, doing a Mickey Mouse, do a bunch of ATMs, which is great. You use the ATMs when it's accretive to common equity shareholders, but you need an approach that's going to be much, much more sophisticated. And I want to lay out some of the innovations that we're going to bring to the table, because yes, Strive, like probably every other Bitcoin treasury company, is going to lean into the playbook that Michael Saylor has innovated and continues to innovate. I think it's unreal, the innovation, the new securities that he's laid out, the attractiveness of them. I'm a huge fan just from a fixed income perspective of the convertible notes and the better risk-adjusted return that they can provide for people that want a little bit of downside protection. But man, this place is so early. And so my background being, coming from CalPERS, institutional fixed income portfolio manager, we're gonna bring some new things to the table. And so I want to lay out a couple different things, because this space is vastly evolving. So the first new thing that we're bringing together is actually part of our initial transaction, where we leveraged learnings from the asset management industry to structure this transaction in a way that allows for a tax-free exchange of Bitcoin for shares of our Bitcoin treasury company. And that is an unlock. And it's an unlock in a few different ways, because we all know Bitcoin goes to the moon very quickly. So what that means is that all these OG Bitcoin holders, they have a lot of gains. And so as Bitcoin treasury companies are evolving, a lot of them want to buy them, but they have to realize a tax gain, pay the IRS, and then obviously have less money to go buy an investment. We're able to do that in a tax-free manner as part of the close of this transaction because of the way it's structured. And I think that's really an innovative way to start a Bitcoin accumulation strategy, and to start one in a way that will be accretive to the common equity shareholders on a couple different dimensions. But I'll just give you one that's really a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of movement between the Bitcoin holders and Strive as a Bitcoin treasury company. And that's that because those gains come over, those Bitcoin holders are likely to be longtime shareholders of the company. You're actually getting a more stable capital base versus having a bunch of hedge funds. So that's the first part of the innovation that we're bringing as part of this transaction. The second is one that I'll keep it more high level, because it's hard to almost believe unless you see it. So I want people to see it, but I want to explain the high level of it. So there's an interesting issue in capital markets where many publicly traded companies are actually trading below the net cash that they hold. So even after you take out the liabilities of these companies, the net cash, the companies are valued at less than the net cash. And so Strive sees an opportunity here, multi-billion opportunity, to actually merge those companies into our Bitcoin treasury company and to basically acquire $1 for 90 cents on the dollar or less, and use that money to buy Bitcoin in a way that is accretive to the common equity shareholders, right? Because to me, there's not much of a better way that you can accrete value to common equity shareholders than to buy a Bitcoin for 90 cents on the dollar or less. And so that's something that we're actively engaged in right now. Our hope is that we can announce something before the close of our transaction or shortly thereafter, but I think it's a very innovative, repeatable strategy that is a multi-billion-dollar type of opportunity that we're bringing to the table. And again, it's leaning into the finance experience for us as a financial services company, things that we see. The third interesting innovation that we're bringing to the space is actually going off of my background as a structured securities portfolio manager, options strategies, derivative strategies. And what it is, and I'm not going to go into the full details because you'll see it when we actually do it, but the high level is there is opportunities to increase leverage beyond what you've even seen to date in Bitcoin treasury companies. Because the clear thing that you have to look out for is, what is the downside? How do you break these things? Because you can always break anything. And I'm of the belief that the Bitcoin treasury companies that exist today are almost unbreakable. But I think that we can even level up another place by actually having a hedge strategy that provides explicit downside protection. And by doing that, we can increase leverage. And as everybody in this room knows that is watching Bitcoin treasury companies closely, if you watch the Q1 earnings presentation for Michael Saylor and the layout of Torque and how leveraging intelligent leverage through fixed income strategies can accrue value to the common equity shareholders and actually justify a very high multiple to the NAV of the Bitcoin in ways that just using common equity strategies can't. And so that's something that we're looking to do in another innovative approach. The last thing is less of an innovation, but it's actually part of the structure of our transaction. And so there's many ways to take a Bitcoin treasury company public. And the way we did it was actually reverse merging into a company that's already public. That company's asset entities. And just briefly on them, I mean, man, they're actually going to be very accretive to our actual operating business. These guys are absolute shippers, tell stories really well. And as everybody knows in this room, education around Bitcoin is so important, and they're going to help us take that education to the next level. But their company, as we reverse merge into them, allows us to have immediate access after close to a shelf. And as you know, Strategy uses a shelf, and Bitcoin treasury companies use a shelf for equity offerings and fixed income offerings. So we want to accelerate in manners that obviously accrue value, maximize value for common equity shareholders. If you don't, as you heard, my view is, as a CEO, if you underperform Bitcoin over the long run, you should be fired. I hold that standard to myself as well. That's the standard. It's a hard standard, but why are we at that standard? We're at that standard because there has been a misallocation of funds in corporate America and the world for the last several years. Stock buybacks that shouldn't have happened, dividends that shouldn't have happened, capital expenditures that shouldn't have happened. We've had an era of easy money, and that era of easy money is over. And where are we right now? We're in an era in this conference, which I think in a couple of years, this conference is going to be at sports stadiums. It's going to continue to grow. And Strategy is, in my view, and I don't think this is even controversial, but it's probably controversial to people outside of this room, the most well-capitalized firm in the world. And we're going to build on that. We're going to do it in novel, innovative ways. And our hope is that we can be a leader in the next wave of Bitcoin treasury companies, and that there's just so much room for innovation in this space. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to continue to see the people that are focused, that have a board that's focused, that has a management that's focused, that's dedicated to the success of a Bitcoin treasury company, be the ones that are actually going to be able to take this stuff to the next level. And that's what we're going to do. Strive, I'm happy to say, is a Bitcoin treasury company. We're here to stay, and thank you for your support.